In our previous video, we explored Iaido, the art of drawing your sword. In ancient Japanese culture, the sword was considered an extension of the samurai spirit. So in philosophical terms, Iaido is more about getting your spirit into the fight. In this video, we're going to explore how Iaido works with different weapons as well as different life skills. Let's just take a moment and explore this idea of getting your spirit into the fight. It can go beyond just drawing your sword. It can be applied to really any aspect of your life. Let's go from the extreme. You're an emergency responder and you show up to an accident. How quick can you go from, is this really happening, to this is really happening, and start taking action? When you are ready to take action, do you have the equipment on you that you need, or do you have to go back to your car to get it? If you've trained to have the equipment on you and be able to enact it very quickly and save this person's life, you're now practicing Iaido.
And being prepared with your equipment is really important. If we look at a broader spectrum, like pretty much everybody out there drives. I've seen a lot of people driving with their cell phone in their hand. Now, in Oregon, it's a hands-free state, and they're going, well, I'm talking on my speakerphone. Well, look, it's in your hand. And it's not so much that that's a distraction, but if I'm driving down the road and all of a sudden an emergency happens, I need to get both hands on the wheel, I have a cell phone in my hand. I'm going to have to drop that or do something with it before I get my hand back on the steering wheel. So if you look at professional drivers, they always have their hands in a position where they can drive correctly, and they put themselves in positions where they're losing control in order to get back in control again. And so with all that experience and their training with their equipment from the car to their harness, then that's what makes them be able to react quicker in emergency situations.
But anyway, this isn't an emergency driving YouTube channel. This is a martial arts channel. So let's talk a little bit more about how the Iaido concepts could apply to empty hand.
When applying Iaido to our empty hand, the one thing I look at is my Iaido technique is these two things. Getting my sword and my hand together at the same time as I'm even stepping into a position that I can fight from. So if we think about this in self-defense, we teach the same thing in our self-defense courses. When there's a threat, I want to be getting a strong stance and getting my hands up in front of me where I can protect myself. And my hands are open, so it's pretty non-threatening. And the idea is how quickly can you get your hands up and in your stance and your spirit into the fight. Now, Monkey Kung Fu also has this concept of dynamic tension, where they might take their kick and they hold this dynamic tension in their kick, boom, they let the hand go, and it just snaps out with this sudden speed and power. We can take that into our self-defense, where now I'm just kind of adding this dynamic tension to my hand here, and it's not against me, it's out in front of me, but it looks kind of non-threatening. Maybe less threatening than getting my hands up, right? This seems very defensive. But if I think I might have to defend myself, I can be here, and when an emergency happens, really quickly with this dynamic tension, it can come out as a block, or it can come out as a strike. And each time I'm able to step with that.
Let's look at different weapons that Iaido can be applied to. For instance, a cane. We've been doing a lot of cane videos. It's one of my favorite weapons. First thing I'll talk about is the same dynamic tension. If I push the cane down and I try to slide the tip on the floor, but I'm putting a lot of pressure so it's not going to slide, as soon as I lift the cane, the tip of it flings out quick. So if I get the cane in front of me, remember like Iaido, I bring that sword out in front of me so I can use it really fast. I bring the cane out in front of me. I push down, I put some of that dynamic tension, I lift up. It could go to the face, to the stomach, to the groin, and stop them, or maybe even give them a good jam. Another idea, and this comes straight out of our staff form, is again with the cane or staff in front of me, I just put a little bit of pressure down on the cane, and I can use this foot to be able to kick it and also send it up quick. The key is my spirit has to already be in the fight. I'm watching this guy, I'm waiting for him to make his first move. As soon as he makes his first move, I beat him to the strike. Let's talk about maybe a more common self-defense tool, a pocket knife. Now, remember when we talked about Iaido, the most important part of it was the scabbard. Now with a pocket knife, the scabbard's going to be your pocket, but it's really the clip that's on it. Here's two different examples. I'll open up the blade so you can see what direction the clip's going. This one, the clip, is going towards the point. This one, the clip, is going towards the glass breaker down at the bottom. Just to make a point about the clip itself, this one has a shiny, bright clip, and if I put it on the outside of my pocket, you see that it's there, which only becomes a problem if I get into an altercation and my opponent is checking me out. He sees that there, he knows I have a weapon. I have a special pair of pants that has a pocket that clip fits into, so it hides it, especially if I'm wearing a t-shirt. But now the other problem is as soon as you pull it out, you're going to hear this. And that clip, even if they're not paying attention with their eyes, they're going to hear that click with their ears. They're going to know something just came out of your pocket. Plus, on some of them, I'll use my jacket as an example. If that clip grips too tight, you're now fighting the fabric to get the knife off. So one thing that I found that you can do to make it a little quicker to get the knife into play is you just take a screwdriver at home, pry it underneath there, and just stretch it out a little bit, not too much, because you don't want the knife to come out of your pocket when you're doing a cartwheel. You do want it to still grip, but you don't want it to make a loud click, and you don't want it to have any resistance against your clothing. The more familiar I am with the scabbard, or in this case, the clip of the blade, the easier it's going to be to get the knife into the fight. So you're going to want to practice whether your clip is going up or whether your clip is going down, pulling it out of your pocket and then extending it. So that's another point I want to talk about. Let's take a look at this knife. This has a couple of ways to extend it. There's a thumb stud on each side. So I can either use my thumb or I could even use my index finger. And especially if you got longer fingers than me, sometimes that's the easiest way. This one, however, actually has a lever on the back. If I pull that lever down, the blade comes out very fast. With this knife, I found the easiest way to get the blade out is as I'm pulling it out to push the lever, and by the time I get the knife in front of me, the blade's already deployed. I don't have to pull it out and then extend the blade. That was 2 steps to get the blade out instead of 1. That's what you're thinking about. How can you make it more efficient? There's also a secret way you can unlock these types of knives without using the stud or the lever. You can use gravity. What I'm trying to do is focus right here where the pin comes together. I'll show you on this side, right here where the pin comes together. That's the center of my circle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate the entire knife as fast as I can right around the center of that, and the knife comes out really quick. So the key would be practicing getting the knife out of the pocket and then springing it out and trying to get that all as one motion. If you can do that fast, that gets the blade in play incredibly fast. There is a problem with carrying the knife in the pocket. First of all, as soon as you reach for your pocket, people know you're not reaching for flowers. You're not going for anything nice if you're going for the pocket. So people are almost hyper-focused on that hand reaching to the pocket. Plus, as I reach to my pocket, my hands are going to have to come from being up all the way down here, and my elbow has to come back behind my body, which tenses up my muscles and slow me down. So there is an alternative where if you wear a belt, maybe you don't even wear a belt, you just attach it to the belt loop, you can keep this knife in an appendix carry. But then you're going to have to practice what's easier for me, grabbing it and drawing it down, or should I have the knife blade up? And then if I'm wearing my shirt to hide it, am I going to be able to lift my shirt up and pull the knife out? These are all the things you're going to want to practice to apply your Iaido to the knife.
So speaking of knives and scabbards, this is my gun belt. This is typically what I would be wearing when I'm hiking. I don't wear this walking down to the grocery store. But I'm out hiking, I'm camping with my dogs. I always have this with me because I'm making camp, you're outdoors, you need a knife to do different types of work. And then I always have my firearm with me to protect us from predators. In this case, talking about the scabbard, I have this knife here that has a very interesting sheath. I'll show you more details on this here in a second. But if I'm in a position where I'm working at my camp and this hand is busy and I need to get a knife, it's just right here. I grab it and I pull it out and it's instantly ready to be used. And it just has to do with how that sheath is designed. I just want to show a little more detail about this scabbard, if you want to call it that. I came across this, my wife and I were going through a sidewalk sale. There was this older lady and her husband made these and she was selling them. And so this is designed to where, now number one, when I'm not using it, it just sits right in there. The clip holds very nicely up against the leather side. And then there's this strap here that keeps the clip from hitting stuff. But it's nice and safe, it doesn't open. When I'm getting ready to hit the trail or I'm getting ready to work around camp, I can preload this knife where if I open it slightly and I put it in, weave it right through that hole and then close it, it sits nice and safely in there, but there's this post. And when I pull the knife out, the blade goes against that post and opens it, and now it's in my hand and ready to use. When I put it away, I can release it with a release on the side, and I go to load it in just the same way. Now what you'll notice is on the bottom, as I'm closing it, the blade sticks out. So again, as you use your tools, you start to figure out things like that, right? I don't want to be here with my hand and open it or close it because I'm going to get something cut.
What he's saying is don't be playing with your knife and peeing at the same time.
Now on this side of my belt, I have my fixed blade knife. And it has an attachment right here to keep it from coming out, as well as actually the scabbard that it in locks it in place. So I have to give it a pretty good tug to get it out anyway. But this attachment is very similar, like if you had pepper spray or an extendable baton, it would usually sit in a sheath, and then you have this attachment where if you take the Velcro off, now you can go ahead and get the defense tool free. In this case, because of the way the scabbard is over here, I can't put it away like I'm putting away a katana. I'm going to have to look at how I'm putting it in because I don't want to stab myself. And it's got to go in the scabbard in the right way, but you'll hear it clicks when it gets in there. So if this comes apart and I'm doing cartwheels, it won't come out. As you practice accessing your different tools, you start to figure out where the inefficiencies are and being able to get to use it. Now with that practice, you can also now overcome those efficiencies, and that's why I keep 2 knives on my belt. Now on my right side, of course, is where I carry my firearm. And just like what we were saying before, the most important part of your weapon is its sheath, or in this case, the holster. Now again, I'm hiking down the trail, I got my backpack and my dog, and I'm doing cartwheels. I don't want my gun to just go flying out. So this has the strap that goes across the hammer and snaps in here. So, however, in order for me to access my firearm, I have to release the snap. And then if I just try to pull it out, the strap gets caught on the hammer. So I have to release the snap and then pull the strap off of the hammer in order to get access to my firearm. When I'm thinking about that inefficiency, my whole concept of if I see an emergency before I need to actually gain access to it, I will already have that ready. And so it's ready to draw at any point. Now, the one thing I don't like about this is it's a cloth holster. So sometimes when I go to release it, it comes out really easy. Other times, the cylinder gets caught up on the inside of this. Sometimes it works really good, sometimes it doesn't. So to me, it's not efficient enough. So if any of you guys out there have a 357, you have a holster that you really like, leave a comment down below. I'd like to hear about that. Now, the other really important part of Iaido is putting the weapon away. Not so applicable in modern day times. If I'm using my firearm and there's an emergency, I'm not going to be putting my firearm away until that threat is ended. If I'm still in the middle of that emergency and a police officer shows up, I'm going to have to prepare to just drop that weapon. I'm not going to worry about sheathing it. Now, the other tools, of course, like my knife, yeah, I got to understand, how am I going to put that knife away without stabbing myself? The other important thing that we talked about in the Iaido training is how your weapon is attached to you. And remember how that katana just slides in the belt. It's not actually attached. So you can pull it all the way out, or you can slide it in and out of the belt and not lose control of it. So with this, it's very much the same thing. I never put it through my belt loops. If I'm wearing my backpack will actually sit right on top of all this. I can still access all my tools. But for instance, when I'm carrying my firearm on the side, if I need to reach for it, you'll see that my arm comes back. And that's not very efficient, right? For me to come out here and then draw it. A lot of people, modern times, like to do an appendix carry. Because the appendix carry, it just sits right here. That's why this knife is there. Now, since this belt is not attached, and actually even my sheath for my knife and my holster slide around on that belt, I can turn my belt. Now it's right here in appendix carry. And if I need it, it's just boom, right here, I can just reach for it. On the other side, if I need to get down and work and I need to squat down and do something, that's the one thing I don't like about appendix carry, is this can kind of get in the way. Sitting in the car, now you have your gun digging into you. So in that case, when I'm not ready to use it, I got my backpack on and I need to be able to do some hiking or maybe some work on the ground, I can move my belt or I can move my sheaths around to where they're less cumbersome to my movement. Now, for instance, if we apply this concept that Iaido teaches to being able to draw my firearm, remember how I talked about how this cloth sheath likes to hang up. And if I'm drawing it from the side, oh, that actually came out pretty easy. But when I'm drawing it from the side, a lot of times it gets caught up before I draw it. But I have found that if I'm carrying it appendix carry, it comes out of the sheath very easily. So now if we take a look at, here's the steps to be able to draw this weapon. Normally, I would have to unsnap it. I would have to clear the strap from the hammer. I'd want to get this around appendix carry. Now finally, I'd be able to draw it. Too many steps. So instead, if I can combine some steps, it will make my draw to fire time that much quicker. So I'll get everything snapped in, and if I go slowly, here's what happens. I'm grabbing my belt and my gun, I'm sliding it over and releasing the strap. As I do that, my thumb comes underneath it. So now my second step is my thumb's clearing the strap, and now I have access to my firearm. So I turned something that was 4 steps into 2 steps. So just with that, I could beat somebody to the draw and get that fire time much quicker.
In conclusion, Iaido isn't just about getting your sword into the fight. It's more about getting your spirit into the fight. So practice with your skills and your tools until they become an extension of your spirit. What tools are you using to practice your Iaido with? Leave a comment down below. As with any skill, it takes practice and proper training to get good at it. So make sure you look for a good school in your area. If you're in Southern Oregon, contact us for our locations and times. Thanks for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, like it, and make sure to share that with a friend. Click the subscribe button and then hit that notification bell so you can catch our next exciting video.